Hello, everyone, and welcome to season three, episode 10 of the No-Frills Teacher podcast. I'm Joe Camps, and today's episode is from history books to children's books with my very special guest, Kaisha Louis. Now, Kaisha is an award-winning educator with over 14 years of classroom experience. Now, in her third year at Canterbury, she teaches AVID, civics, U.S. history, world history, and youth and government. Aisha has earned major recognition, including the Dr. James A. Adams Lee County Teacher of the Year Award for law related education, along with multiple Golden Apple distinctions. She's also a published children's author with Goldilocks and the Three Attempts at Government and the ABCs of Mesopotamia. And she has currently, I believe, a third book released recently, and as well as working on a fourth book that we'll get into a little bit further in this episode. Aisha also brings an incredible mix of passion, creativity, and leadership to her students, and I'm thrilled to share her story with you today. So let's jump right in and hear from Keisha herself about her journey, her classroom, and the impact she's making both in education and beyond. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on. I've known you for a while now, and a lot of big things happening. I just shared with the audience in that little intro about yourself, but I mentioned a couple of books, Teaching Avid, and really there's so much to cover, but let's just start with the most basic question. Kaisha Louis, who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, as you said, I've been teaching for quite a while now. I spent over 12 years in middle school and I worked special ed before that. And now I have the wonderful pleasure of working at a pre K 3 through 12 school at the upper school level. And this year I am teaching AP Human Geography, which is a new one for me. And I am teaching my politics and government class. And then I'm just teaching modern this year. So it's quite a bit of a switch up, but it's going really good and it's so
That's
much fun.
awesome. That is awesome. So it's safe to say that you just have a little bit on your plate this year.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Not too much happening at one time. You don't need to juggle too many balls in the air at once. So that's got to be wild, right? That's a change from what you had done previously. Now let's touch upon a little bit. I had mentioned that you are a published author, and
Yeah.
we talked about Goldilocks and the Three Sunset Government, the ABCs of Mesopotamia. I had mentioned that I believe there is a third book that was recently published. Is that correct?
Yeah, on Friday, my ABCs of the Middle Ages came out, which is super exciting, which is my third one. And it's been going so good so far. And then I am so close to being finished with my next one. And it's called Heimdall and the Golden Horn, a Norse tale for little heroes, the history behind the name. And that one's based on literally a conversation that my husband and my son had about like where he got his name from. And as we were talking about the other night, like my husband was really into Viking when I was pregnant with our second one.
Yeah.
And I remember I was pregnant at the same time as your wife because we walked across the Golden Apple Sage in nice
Yep.
dresses with a big old belly.
I remember that. Yep.
And so it's literally going over like the interactive story of them talking about the history of his name and that it's literally a Viking god from Norse mythology. And it goes over the history and he's telling them all about it. And then at the end, it goes over like vocab and the different gods and all these things. And it's really inspirational and it's a lot of fun to make.
That is amazing. I love that. And yes, we were having that conversation about the Vikings, and I said the same thing that my wife and I we used to watch the Viking shows. We were into the show Vikings, and I gave you a little bit of personal, information about my brother. His middle name is actually Thor. So I was like, well, that Norse, mythology, just that time, I know, just love it. That was so cool. That was just something. See, I didn't know, and something that we didn't know about each other that we had a commonality there.
Yeah, which is super fun. And Heimdall loves his name and completely lives up to it. So he thinks it's super cool.
That is so yeah, that's so cool. That's a great name. But what has inspired you? And I got to go back and touch now as an elementary educator myself. I have read Goldilocks and the Three Bears to my students when I had taught primary to my own children as well. But what made you come up with a story that was called Goldilocks and the Three Attempts at Government? It's a very unique, title and genre over there. Touch on. I usually don't associate children's stories like literature with civics.
So the whole entire goal was based off of like, I did this comic strip. I taught civics for a really long time at the middle school level. And like you would talk in your classroom and, you're trying to relate it to different things over time. And so I tried to make, like, we did comic strips all the time, which was so much fun. But we did the British rule, this government is too strong. And then the Articles of Confederation was too weak. And then the Constitution was just right. And it went exactly with the standards because it kept emphasizing how strong the British rule was and that the monarchy was too much for them and that we had to keep pointing out the weaknesses of the articles. And I was like, oh, now we're going to get to the Constitution. It's just right. And so we made a comic strip based off of it. And it was so awesome and amazing. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I want to make YouTube videos and I want to turn this into a YouTube video. And then that spiraled out. And I was like, well, I want parents to be able to do this at home and teachers to be able to have this. And then it turned into a book idea and I just kind of ran with it. And so the book leads up to the activity of the comic strip. And then there's also a QR code to watch the YouTube video. And it kind of brings it all together with the vocab and everything for teachers.
I'm smiling as you say that because I actually have a copy of that book. It does sit in my classroom. And although I'm currently now in the position of a literacy coach, I really wish that this was published. Timing is everything. Last year, when I was covering civics government with my fifth grade students for U.S. history, we were talking about the three branches of government. And we're talking about the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution and all those things because holy cow, it's not only to have something that gets the attention of children, students, really, any age, whether they're elementary, middle school, and beyond, but the fact that what you had created, it's interactive. And you mentioned about these QR codes, and that's some out of the box thinking that you had. And just that tie in is so cool. Way to go.
Thanks. Well, it really came from me being a parent and just being like, wow, like my daughter's coming home with all these vocab terms all the time. And like you as a parent, you see it, you're seeing all these things coming home. I mean, I'm an educator, so like I can work with her, but how many of those parents get things home and don't know how to work with their kid on that? So like, wouldn't it be awesome if those worksheets or those books or those projects came with a YouTube video that you could review at home or a book that you could do at home and then kind of tie it in together so that you both have that parent experience and then you have something to talk to your kid about when they say, oh, I learned nothing in school today in the car,
Yeah,
which we
because
all
they
do
all
all the
say
time.
that. They all
You're
say
like, what?
that. Come on.
Yeah. They're like, what'd you do today? I don't know. I don't remember. But like this ties it home and then it makes it like an awesome experience where you can either send home a class set or you'd be like, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you want to look it over? My kids, my sophomores in my modern class are about to do my Middle Ages. They're going to try it because I've never done it before. So they're going to do Middle Ages ABCs because they were upset because my freshmen for my ancient class used to do the Mesopotamia ABCs. And then since we're a pre-K 3 through 12 school, we would walk down the hall and go read to the pre-K 4 kids.
Huh.
So they actually got to go and read their book to someone. Like I've been doing this for, I don't even know how many years, like over 10 years, I've been doing this exact same activity. And I'd be like, oh, you should read it to your like sibling at home. But if they didn't have a sibling, I was like, oh man. And I really wish that I had had the guts and courage when I worked at Dunbar Middle to just make that partnership next door because we had an elementary next door and like walk across the fields for a field trip,
Yeah.
no pun intended. But like, I wish we had gone across the field and actually gone over and read to the kids because it would have been such a great experience for them to show off all their hard work.
Yeah, and what it really does is it gets the kids at a younger age interested, and it hooks them for wanting to learn these subjects and these topics as they get older, because then they remember, oh, when these kids came and read to me, or this was introduced to me. And that's something also that I really love about your books that you've been publishing is I mentioned to you the other night when we were speaking, the illustrations. It's just they're eye catching. They're really neat, and they they capture the imagination. Really, is what I see of the children that are reading them, and it's very unique and just very cool. I gotta say though, as far as an educator, this is something obviously you're very passionate about, right? What you teach, the subjects you teach. How did that come about? It's almost like a specialty in a way for you. And what I mean by that, for those that are listening, is we talk to various educators, and we kind of specialize in certain areas, or we become experts. And we're going to kind of talk about awards and recognition, and we'll get into all that. But what led you to saying, you know what, this is something that I'm passionate about, and this is something that I want to teach my students and get into?
I really honestly, like everyone has those moments when they're growing up where they like decide like what they want to be. And I was very blessed, very young to kind of figure that out. But I honestly, I was struggling in science and I didn't know where to go. And my mom's like, oh, I'm going to get you a tutor, blah, blah, blah. And so I went and pitched to my fifth grade teacher, who is like my favorite science teacher. He was super interactive. We even dissected a rat, which
Oh,
I found it kind of offensive to the rat that we had as a class pet named Katie. But
no, I think the furthest I got was maybe a frog. I think.
oh,
The
yeah,
rat,
no, in
no,
fifth grade, right there, just
yeah, no,
going
mine was
in.
like high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was really passionate about science. And so I went to him and I was like, I'm really struggling in this class. I don't know why. Everyone's having difficulty. Like, my mom wants to get me a tutor. Would you be willing to tutor me? Because I feel like I was most successful in your class and this is something you're excited about. And he said, only under one condition. And I said, well, what's the condition? He was like, you have to join Future Teachers of America. And I would like you to come in after school and help my students. And then as soon as they leave, I'll help you. And I was like, okay, sounds easy. Like I get like community service hours, I get like all this stuff for college, like sounds easy. And he's like, I'm not even going to charge you. Just come in and help my kids and we'll consider it a trade-off.
Oh
And
wow.
so I did. And I went in and I pulled them and I did like phonics learning. We went over stuff. Like I would pull them into the library, help them finish up work if they had been absent, and just kind of built that relationship. And then I started doing small groups and it was really inspirational. And I was like, this is what I want to go to school for. I was like, this is what I want. And so that was kind of the path that I took after that.
That's something. That's what an opportunity to
Yeah.
have, and exactly, and then like I said, not to be charged, and just kind of under the learning tree, if you will, of that teacher, and that's I think that's why we do what we do as educators, is because there's always that one teacher in that's out there that just makes that impact on your life, and it really could change the trajectory of your livelihood. I feel it
Yeah.
sounds like that had happened with you.
Yeah. And it's not only just those inspirational teachers, because we've all had those not so inspirational teachers that inspire you even more. And
Yeah, sometimes,
like
yes.
the like I remember this one teacher that I had. I can't even remember his name off the top of my head right now, but like he was one of those like boring US history teachers that every single day it was like he would lecture and then we'd do textbook notes and they're in the exact same format. And it got to a point where I literally wrote like I would do the outline of the like the chapter, and then I started writing in it like blah 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 will not read this, blah 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 will not read this, and like over and over again. And he would just walk around and look at them, and if they're in the correct structure, like flip through your pages. It's like okay, yep, and then he'd check a box on his paper, and then he'd keep going. But I remember, like I was like, man, like this is like I wanted this class because it was going to be fun, and then we did this challenge where we had to make this like shoebox thing and I was like, I'm going to make this the coolest shoebox ever. And it was over the Civil War. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, this is what I'm really into. Like, we used to go to different Civil War sites growing up. And so my mom drove me up because I'm from Maine and we went up to Bowdoin and we actually went to Joshua Chamberlain's house and got like mini figures. And I made this full Civil War like reenactment in this shoebox. And it was so cool and fun. I was like, this is what history class should be like. Like it shouldn't just be boring lectures every single day. Like I learned so much from that. And then I built that like experience with my mom and I still remember it to this day. Like I remember what the store looked like. I remember what everything was in the museum. Like it was such a great experience for both me and her. And she still brags about it to this day. And like it was really cool. Like I even went to like Michael's or Joanne Fabrics and got like fake grass and everything. Like it was amazing.
You went all out.
I did. And he was like, this is above and beyond. You didn't need to do all this and spend all this money. And I was like, so you're like upset that I like went above and beyond because this was fun. Like this is what I want to do and this is what like school should be like.
Absolutely. It makes me think about when I would assign projects, end of unit projects for my students for my U.S. history subject, my fifth graders, and whether it was something like a shoebox or it was a triboard, whatever it might be, you could tell there were the students that, some of them were like, I'll just kind of maybe print out a couple of pictures and just like glue them, on my board, whatever, my shoebox. And then you had the kids that I went ahead and same thing. I ordered these on Amazon or I went to Joann's. So like I sat there and meticulously painted, hand painted every little figurine and reenacted. I had one time we were doing native tribes of North America and a lot of kids like the Inuits were always huge. So
Yeah.
everyone wanted to do the Inuits because they wanted to make igloos and all those things. And one kid
Of
had
course, why
like,
not?
yeah,
Penguin.
no. So like this kid's had like a handful of kids that would have like a seal or like a wall or whatever it was, and like have like painted blood on it from a harpoon or a spear. And I'm
My
like,
God.
what's going on over here? And I loved it though. It
Sounds
was
like my
awesome.
kid.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I would be that kid over there. I probably said, can you print these out for me? And I'm just going to glue them on my board. And,
But
but I
but
love
that's
the
a kid that's
creativity.
probably great like an essay. And like, so like that may not be his jam, but the kid that's not so good at an essay, maybe that
Yeah.
shoebox is his jam. And like when you hit like that, like understanding by design and you really like differentiate and hit those different multiple intelligences, like, and you give that variety of an opportunity of showing their learning in a creative way, it really surprises you because maybe that kid that like is good at essays can also do that. But that kid that struggles with the essay format is like, wow, like you put this bedazzled board together that looks fantastic. Like, and it's absolutely amazing and it completely blows you away. But if you don't give them that opportunity to assess their learning in different ways and we keep doing it in the same way, that kid never gets a chance to shine.
Perfectly said. You hit the nail on the head, and I'm not in agreement while you're saying all that because right away what came to mind as you were just saying that sure that was I had students exactly same that you had mentioned. There were certain areas that perhaps they were strong in or not as strong in, but then what they would present when they had the opportunity to be creative because I do feel like at times we that creativity is stifled in the classroom
Yeah.
because it's very kind of like here you gotta cover this and this and this. It's all like a checklist. Like gotta get through all these benchmarks. We gotta get all these assignments. We got all these assessments. They never get a chance to just be creative. So yes, well said.
Thanks. And like, that's the thing that teachers don't get. It doesn't have to be something big all the time though. Like you build to like the end and you begin with the end in mind for those people who are going through like a 7 habit school or whatever. Like if you start with the end in mind and you build towards it, you have those opportunities, but it doesn't have to be something big. Like I'm teaching AP Hug right now, like for human geography, and we just finished up unit 1. And they were like, well, like, what are we going to do for study day? And I was like, we're doing the octonauts. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, do you guys remember octonauts? And they were like, yeah. And they're like, what do you mean we're doing octonauts? Like, we're going to watch an episode? And I was like, no, even better. We're going to act it out. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, we're going to do octonauts in the case of the missing map scale. And they're like, map scale, like the map scale we just studied? And I was like, yeah. And it was literally like less than 10 minutes of all my freshmen standing up with this script. And they each had like parts. And the kid that chose Quasi was perfect for it. He had never watched like
And I
Octonauts
and I
ever in
and I
his
know the
life.
show. I have
Yeah.
seen. I have watched my children. Yes, I'm well aware of that show.
Yeah. And so like it was like sound the octo alert and I played like the intro and like so it like plays in and so like it starts and like Captain Barnacles goes off and like the polar bear and like the kids are reading it and there's like a narrator that goes through, but then of course like Shellington like reads out like, like the different facts, and they're like, he's like, oh yeah, this is what this is, and like goes over and they're like, oh look, there's a chloroplast map over there, and that's not the one that we need, and that so they're going through like this whole process of reviewing their vocab in a fun, creative way. And it took us less than 10 minutes. And then they just went into their study guide on, well, it's not quizzes anymore, it's Wayground. And then they just started doing that. But I could see their scores going up and they were into it and they were like interacting with silly voices and like really got into it, even though that kid had never seen an episode of Octonauts in his life. Like everyone chose him to be Quasi and he was great at it. And I was like, you have to be a pirate cat. He was like, pirate cat? And I was like, yeah, dude. He's like, what show is this? But it was so much fun and it was simple and quick. And it doesn't have to be a big, huge project every time. Like the Goldilocks book is based on a one pager that's just like 3 panels and they draw out their knowledge of like the British and the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. And you don't have to go big and beyond. And I think that's what, a lot of teachers think nowadays, especially the new ones coming in looking at Instagram and you're like
Oh
scrolling through
yeah.
and you're like, oh my God, like look at these rooms. And like it's
Oh yeah.
bedazzled and amazing, but it doesn't have to be that all the time.
No, don't get me started on the Picture Perfect classroom, the Instagram, and for those that are listening or will listen to this episode that have those classrooms, and I've had an entire episode on this topic, and I could probably do 10 more episodes on this topic. Kudos to you. That is awesome. However, sometimes, like you said, and I'm glad you said it, we overcomplicate things,
Yeah.
and simplest is best sometimes. Not always. There's exceptions to the rule. I know some teachers go kind of above and beyond, and they're spending countless hours transforming their room and things like that. Sometimes a practical approach, it's something that hooks your students, and like you said, you have them hooked. It was their time to shine. And
Yeah.
they were familiar with the show, and that's when you kind of see their personalities. You get to see the smiles, and as a teacher, you got them. You have them. Now I can introduce and talk about what I intended to originally in my plans because they're engaged and they're attentive to what I'm saying and they're receptive to what I'm teaching.
Yeah. And fully. And like the thing is like, I actually talked to someone one time because the lady who wrote Freedom Writer's Diary, she's amazing. I've met her in person. She's absolutely like
Yep. Aaron,
astonishing.
I want to say Aaron Gruel, if I'm saying it correctly, the one
Yeah.
who is Hilary Swank, the one she played in the movie.
Yeah.
I
So I
definitely, I
got
got a
to,
picture with her. I got a selfie with her.
yeah, it was probably the exact same event.
Probably.
So like I got her autograph and everything, but like someone pointed out after, and at first I was like offended because I was like a new teacher in the district and like whatever. And my teacher mentor didn't go to the event. And I like took it offensive at first when she said there was actually a study that teachers like her, they burn out. And after that, and like what the book is based off of, she stopped teaching shortly after that. And how like you can statistically look up like teachers that burn out because they think that they need to live up to that standard after of like all these teachers that are in these movies that these like big huge things happen and like a movie is made off of it. They burn out shortly after. And I think that a lot of our teacher burnout comes from looking at these Instagram,
Yeah.
and what people don't realize is a lot of those people have left the classroom and they just took so many pictures that they prop it behind them. And now they just like
Yeah.
make stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers from home because it was too much for them. And like, I don't want it to be too much for people. And I want to simplify it as much as possible because as a mom and a wife and a teacher, like in teaching even a new subject this year, it's a lot. And you know, I don't want to burn out for my kids because I still want to be an awesome parent when I get home and I need to be there for them and I need to be there for my husband and be there for myself. And I really want to streamline that for others as well.
Which that's a good segue because I actually want to circle back a little bit. When you had talked about having these experiences yourself, you said you went with your mother on these trips and really kind of absorbed history and learned from these experiences. You and I were talking a few days ago, and it came up about the conversation of vacations, right, with family. And there's something that I wanted to ask you as a follow up was you had said that kids remember family vacations because they're novel and meaningful, and I love that idea. So my question to you is, how do you take that same concept and bring it into the classroom so that learning sticks with your students in the same way?
So that's awesome. Like, so we all see those things all the time, like those reels, and really, like, you feel like it's just people trying to get you to buy a vacation. But like kids going on a vacation is more memorable to them. And when you think back on the times, like you think back on like summer camp or like that interactive experience with your family. And when we apply that to the classroom and you activate that connection and that excitement and that memory building, it becomes not just routine learning, it becomes that interactive learning that's going to be memorable. Like I still remember, like, I don't even know what it was about, but like, I remember this eighth grade teacher who made all these corny like songs for math. And it was like, damn, the home of the beaver. And then it like literally went into like this whole mathematic arithmetic. And I like remembered it. And I remember it because like I aced all my stuff because I thought about it as I was going. And like I thought of all the things like, we all remember like PEMDAS and like all those like tricks that you do because you're fully immersed and you're thinking of something out of the box and making different connections. But like I had a student the other day that I was telling you about, we were doing yearbook pictures and one of my students was there because she's old enough now that I had in middle school that she was the one taking our photos. She was the photographer. And she was like, oh, like Miss, she's like, oh man, you got married. It was Miss Dunn. And now it's like Miss. And I was like, Miss Lewis. And I was like, yeah, hi, how are you? And she's like, I still jammed at Hamilton all the time because of you. She's like, I remember taking my EOC and like singing it in my head and just jamming along. And like that was so long ago. And I remember like we used to do like it literally, I toured the whole second semester at Valentine's Day. We would make these like great breakup letters and it was amazing. And they were like Hamilton themed. And like we would do a song, a lyric analysis, and then a lesson and then we would just keep going and going through history. And it stuck because they had the lyrics to go with it. And who doesn't love Lin-Manuel Miranda? And
Exactly.
so it's great because when you're doing those, they're sticking like a family vacation because your classroom needs to feel like a family and those memories need to stick and they make those lifelong learners and they're going to make those connections. And when you do those fun things, whether it's like the Civil War, like shoebox, or like we used to do these toilet paper cats and we would take toilet paper rolls and like fold them and decorate them like cat statues for ancient Egypt. Like those things are going to stick. Like they're corny and you think, oh, like this is just a waste of time for one small thing out of the bajillions of like I can statements and learning goals that my students need to do, but they stick. And that's what we want. And you're not going to get every kid every day. Like one kid may just want to print some stuff out and glue it in the shoebox, but one kid may go above and beyond and go to like Joanne Fabrics and get really into it. So like you want to hit those learners all the time. And when you make it like those positive memories and like you're forming those things. Like my high school students still remember their pre-K 4 experience of like they have this like Polar Express day that they do at our school. And it's like a tradition every year. And they all dress in their PJs and they come in and there's an actual train conductor there from like Lakes Park and he's ringing a bell and they come in and the room's all bedazzled and set up and it's got like this like Christmas snowy music on and they watch Polar Express. And obviously they do lessons leading up to it, but they still remember it because it's that magical experience that they're not going to forget. Like,
You created that core memories like Inside Out.
yes. Oh my gosh, my daughter keeps bringing home that book from the library. And this is like the third time she keeps hinting at like she loves this book. But we have tried to watch that movie so many times and she's like, no, I don't like it. But she's bought the book home. It's sitting out there on the bench right now in her foyer. Like it's the third time she's brought it home from the library at school. But yet we still have not accomplished watching that entire movie.
Oh, that sounds like my kids. Yeah, they'll want to watch something or they'll talk about it. And then the next is this a long movie? I'm like, I don't know, it's like an hour and a half, whatever. Like they don't have the concept of time anyway because you're young, but they'll talk about it. Finally, I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and watch the movie. No, I don't want to watch that. Can I watch Bluey instead? And then I'm
Oh yeah. Oh
watching,
my God.
and
I
I
love
love
Bluey.
Bluey. We're in a Bluey era, my wife and I,
Oh,
and who isn't?
I cry in the background like all day long. Bluey is
uh,
more for the adult than it
it
is for the
it
kids,
really
I
is
feel.
most relatable children's show out there for adults.
Yeah.
But it's like the same thing. My kid will be like, I watch this, like, and it turns into, no, I don't want to watch that. I'm like, you just talked about it, or something like we went
My
to the
kids have
library and you got a
all
book.
the troll songs as example. Like
Yeah,
my kids have all those troll songs memorized, but they refuse to watch the movie.
that's my
They
kids with
thought it
Disney
was
movies.
scary.
Yeah, no, my kids, they'll want to go to Disney. They'll want to see the characters at Disney. They'll want to go on the rides at Disney. Do they want to sit and watch a Disney movie? Nope.
No,
Nope, not even close. We'll watch Bluey again for the 100th time.
that's okay because it's Bluey.
Yeah,
Can't go
exactly.
wrong.
Exactly. It's like you said, having kind of creating those memories and just even having that background knowledge, like you really get yours. It's surprising sometimes as an educator when you're with students and you see like which students have had certain experiences in life and obviously different situations, different scenarios, because of family, finances and all those things. But just even the exposure, not necessarily going on these elaborate trips, as a child with a family, but even experiences of going to the beach or to a museum. There are many students that don't get to experience those things and they don't have that background knowledge where they can then kind of make associations, or connections related to the content. So you got to bring things into the classroom with your students as well build and create these memories is pretty special, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's great. And like I can definitely tell the difference between the kids, like as like now a mom and a teacher. Like I can now see my students so differently. And when I'm reading their essays, like I can tell whose parents literally like read to them in silly voices when they were little, who like were interactive with the book with them when they were little, and like who had creative, amazing, and might not even be at home. Like they had a really interactive like experience in elementary, or that played team sports. Like you can see that in their cooperation level and their determination. And when you present them with a challenge and they rise up to that challenge, and you can see it. And I remember there's another teacher at our school that I had her son a couple years ago, and I'm like, I still love your kids like essay the most because I challenged them. I was like, I'm going to read a bunch of these finals. I was like, you better make your final super interesting. And I was like, we've been prepping for this all year. I was like, I gave you guys the documents ahead of time, and they were comparing where we justified or not in dropping the atomic bomb. And so they were looking at these primary sources. And I was like, you better make yours like hook super interesting. Like, I don't want to be bored reading it. Like, it's all going to sound the same. It's all the same evidence later on.
Yeah.
So this kid literally goes, like, literally writes out the sound. He's like, do you hear that? That's a fighter jet flying over, checking the area ahead of time. Shh, incoming the bomber. And then and literally plays out the sounds for his hook in this handwritten essay on his final leading up to
Oh,
them
wow.
dropping the bomb. And I'm like, yeah, this is how you make it interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can tell you have a teacher mom who sat there and was very animated. Like
Uh,
when you're little, and those things are important. Like, and you think about those things, like they're little small things when you're reading to your kids at night, using those silly voices, having different characters. Like we're Audible addicts right now. And my kids are so into this Stitch Audible that we've listened to a million times in the car. And it's because it's the actual characters from the movie reading the book. And so it's the different characters that are reading it. And I know that that's going to play out later on when they actually go to write things or be imaginative and be
yeah.
creative. And I can see it when they're thinking of things, and we get stuck in traffic all the time because, lovely
Of
Southwest
course.
Florida.
Yeah, we gotta love it.
Um, and then we've started to like make up stories of our own in the car. And they're like, well, what if we made up a story of like a cop that's a cop by day and a ninja by night. And thankfully, ChatGPT then creates a picture for us, like on the app in our phone, because we're stuck there and
God, I love
stacked in traffic
ChatGPT.
for like forever. I know. And so we create these images on like ChatGPT or like Midjourney or whatever. And we're sitting there creating these stories. And they're like, oh, wait, can we turn that into a book? And like, I'm running with it because I know the impact that it's going to have later on their education, how they are with others. And it's such a great gift that you can give to your kids.
Now, something you had mentioned a little bit earlier was you had talked about like backwards design and part of your like your teaching philosophy. So how can you use that understanding like or can you walk us through how you use the understanding by design or really the backwards design model in planning your lessons and in addition to then how do you go from that and take your standards and break them down into those student friendly I can statements to make teaching more, I don't want to say like approachable, but more so where it's engaging for your students and they feel like these things that concepts that, we talk about history. Sometimes things are a little bit abstract for students and it could be a lot heavy depending on what you're reading. But how do you turn it into something where students use these I can statements all tied into also like your backwards design to get them where you need them to be?
Yeah. So what I do is I went to UMaine Farmington, which is like a teaching college for the most part. And like they did understanding by design and multiple intelligences, and they like really, really pushed it. And so what we would do is we would start with the end, and they were like, okay, these are the standards that you need. Now transform them into a checklist for yourself. And so as years have gone by, I've turned it into a checklist for myself and my students to track their data. And so I have these I can statements, or it's like I can explain how geographers use data to make decisions and identify patterns. And then they have to mark it in blue before the unit and then pink after the unit so they can see themselves grow. And so it's not yet getting there. Yes, I can. And I'm like, I want you to answer this honestly. Like, I'm not grading it based on what you know before we even start, because I can't do that. And I tell them it's like the power of not yet. Like, you've probably watched like Gabby's Dollhouse, and she says, like, the power of yet, because we don't know this yet. And they think I'm super corny because now they're in that generation
That was
where,
that was going to be my next question. True or false? Have you tied anything into Gabby's dollhouse? Because I had heard a rumor that you had.
yeah. So I feel that the cornier the better, and I find the most corny videos ever possible. If you ever take my class of any corny rap video of some really lame, as my kids like to call it, like history teacher out there that thinks they're cool and makes a rap video of like the Middle Ages or something.
Aren't
But yeah,
all history teachers cool? Come on.
oh yeah, that's so cool. So yeah, so I use that to track it myself because if I expect my students, I also need to know if I did it. So then I build my lessons and I check off on these I can statements. Did I actually put it in there? And it builds to that end item, whether it's a test or whatever. And like, if it's, I really want them to understand, all these things and they're showing along the way. Maybe we did a bunch of primary source documents and I've given them exit questions, whatever else. So like maybe I could do it based on their vocab, like our ABC project. Like here's the vocab. Now show me, what's the different, like the definition of astronomy, but astronomy in Mesopotamia. And like, yeah, you know what a king or a queen is, but what was a king or a queen during the Middle Ages? Or like, we do all these different things. We've done random knowledge presentations, which was hilarious and super fun last year. And we did it on ancient Rome and World War II. And they got like these different categories that were based on things that we talked about in class, but like there was specialized like weapons, there was spies and espionage, animals, and they had to choose a topic. And it could only be one fact on the board. But I was like, it's a presentation. Like, you guys need to learn this mature thing. Not everything is on the board. Like, you need to know the information. I shouldn't be reading an essay on the board in your slides. And so they used their Canva account and they came up with these like quick facts. And I was like, imagine like you see this like quick reel on Instagram and there's just one fact and they're explaining it. And so they did this and it was cool. They came up with like bat bombs, like inflatable tanks that they use. And it was so cool. It was like I was learning and they were learning. And there were things that they found. I was like, whoa, where did you find this? And like it was great because it showed not only their interest, like whether it's like the whatever topic that they chose, but it was interesting to the kids as well. And everyone was learning. It was like these obscure things because they used to joke with me all the time, like, you're just not the most random stuff. And I was like, well, you have the guest speakers in that have in, like, you just learn random things. And so it was really great because they like came up with like all of these random things. Like I now know that there's a war bear in Russia that they trained. And like there's all these cool things that I now know and that they now know. And they were so into it because I put the power in their hands to show me like the end result. And I know that I met all the things along the way because I used that checklist and I designed backwards. And I was like, this is how they can show me what they learned. And I know that in each and every lesson, I checked off at least one of these. And by the end, I checked them all off. And like they then in turn have checked off all these I can statements.
And you found, you had mentioned that your data, right, was showing that these immersive experiences were actually boosting your students' scores. And the
Yeah.
question would be, well, so why do you think this hands-on learning works so effectively compared to traditional instruction?
So my other class that I teach, which is super cool, is politics and government, and it's youth and government through the YMCA. And my students write bills like a rough draft to a law, and they go compete in Tallahassee. And if their bill passes in a mock legislature, it could be an actual law in the state of Florida, which is really cool.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. And so, like, a bunch of my kids have gone through this, and this whole experience is amazing. And a lot of laws that are out there are actually from middle school and high school students, and people don't realize, like, that's where they truly come from.
I had
Um,
no idea, honestly.
yeah. So, it's really cool. And so, my students, in order to get them knowledgeable, because they really haven't, like, had a lot of world experience, I bring in these different guest speakers. Like we just had in Mayor Anderson of Fort Myers. We had the Honorable Matt Caldwell, who's the Lee County tax appraiser. We have Jenna Persons Maluka, who's a representative in next week and also a lawyer. She's been in quite a few times. We have all these people that come in. We even have Aging Southwest Florida coming in to talk to us about like our elderly population. And we have these people come in and they give inspiration. Like my kids got this really great idea a couple of years ago from Gulf Coast Humane Society of like an animal abuser registration. So you could look it up and you could see like, am I going to sell my cat to someone that has abused animals before, or like my dog to someone who has a criminal history in like dog fighting? And it was great because they're immersed in this process. And we looked at the data, and almost all of my kids, except for like one or two sprinkles here and there, all my kids were passing their EOC with a 3 or higher. They were even having, like, out of it's a 1 through 5 here in Florida, they were even having ones and twos on their FSA reading scores and writing scores, but they were passing the civics EOC.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's an accomplishment.
That
And
is
like that's
huge.
really great. And it's a testament to like they were fully immersed in these people. And people are like, how do you even get these people to come in? And I make the joke, which I told you the other day. I was at the Golden Apple banquet. My first year as teacher distinction. And I was there with my husband and my principal at the time. He was there with his wife. And there was this guy that was so cool. He had an old movie set installed into his classroom. And it was like this courtroom in his classroom, which was so cool. And I remember watching it. I was like, oh my God, like, what if I had gig as a class that wasn't just after school? So then I pitched it to my principal and he was like, all right, how much is this going to cost me? I was like, it doesn't
Of
have to cost you
course.
anything.
Of
I was like,
course.
I will. I was like, you just give it to me as a class. I will run with it. It could be public speaking. It will be so great. I don't have to compete with like music and band after school. I was like, it will be great. I promise. And he was like, okay. And then I just kept going. And my husband, who was my fiance at the time, he was like, he said, okay. And he was like, I've learned to just let her go. And so my principal was like, no, just let her go. And so I got debate podium and I like the whole philosophy of if you build it, they will come. I built it, I asked, and they came and they continue to come. And it really great and amazing. And the difference that you see in those kids, not only academically, but like they go from quiet, meek kids to like amazing, outspoken kids in class. Cause I was like, dude, like, why are you afraid to go give that presentation on this chapter in like, English class later? Like, you just talked to the mayor yesterday. Like, why is that scary? And they're like, you're right. And they just go. And it's
Build that
such a booming
confidence.
experience. Yeah.
It, so cool. I didn't know how, thinking back, I, he was a Golden Apple recipient, right? The one who had the courtroom.
Yeah. It was
Yes,
years ago.
yes, I'm trying to blank on the name. I apologize for forgetting who it was, but I do remember the video package that the news, they do for the recipients, and him
Yeah.
having the mock courtroom and all those things. And that's so cool. I did not know that. And yep, you're definitely the kind of teacher, like-minded. When you have an idea, you just run with it. And I agree 100% with you. You don't know what you could get or who you could get if you never ask. And what a great way to build relationships with these stakeholders within the community.
It really is. And like all these people keep thinking about, you know, I'm not very strong at this subject, or I want to do this with my kids. And it doesn't have to be, like we said, the Instagram thing. You don't have to go spend a bunch of your money. There's programs out there. Like you can reach out to like STEM Southwest Florida or other like businesses around, and they'll come in and they'll do an activity with your kid. You can invite in a local museum and they'll come in and do a science experiment with them. We got the Holocaust Museum. We got a trip all the way down to the Holocaust Museum for all of our eighth graders, fully funded in grant. And they went down there and got to go in the museum, which a lot of them had never been in a museum before. And then during COVID, they had a traveling museum that came to us, and it was completely free of cost. Like we used to do the box car. We even did an event at night where you could go inside the boxcar, and we had Holocaust speaker. There was a survivor that came out, and we did this whole candlelit visual kind of thing. They were not real candles because I was paranoid, but it was on Christmas
Probably a good
Eve.
call. Probably a good
Oh
call.
yeah, yeah. Don't need to burn down history. So
No.
it's one simple accident. That's how you make the news. Yeah. So but it was great. And it was these great programs that are already funded and granted. And like, and it doesn't even need to have funding attached. Like, it doesn't cost me anything to reach out to like a professor from a local college and be like, hey, an AP Hug, we have to talk about gerrymandering. And I don't know, I'm not that great at gerrymandering. Or why not invite someone in to explain the different types of maps, especially if you're a first year teacher? Like, you're struggling on one topic, invite an expert in from your local government and they'll come in and they geek out. This is what they do. Like they love it. Like I love watching the news, and like if there's a weatherman that geeks out, which you need to because
Uh-huh.
Florida has a lot going on. But like it's great and you see their passion. Why not bring that passion into the classroom? Like you're passionate about certain topics. There's always that topic that you're like, oh, dude, we have to talk about this soon. And you're like, I have no idea what the Ottoman Empire is even talking about. And so, like, why not bring in someone? Like, these resources are here and they're free or available, or even if they're not free, they're at low cost or there's some way to get it to you. Like, take advantage of those things.
Yeah. If you're listening and you're a new educator, take this advice. Go ahead and reach out to your community members, your stakeholders, right? Your school community. There are people out there that want to come in and they want to, support your classrooms, your students, and that is awesome. Now, how do your families, are they receptive? Because I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking to myself, man, I would love to be in Kaisha's classroom and, and be in there and just experience what your students are experiencing and just the hands-on learning, the engagement, those fun activities, acting out with your students. And this is kind of ties a little bit more of like a personal story, something you had shared with me previously as well, along with your parental support and, and buy-in. You had mentioned previously to me that we had a conversation about, say, like your vocabulary worksheets. A lot of what you had created, they were actually inspired by your daughter's struggles. And there were times when you tied them into topics, even holidays. how do you get those fun family centered activities, that open communication between home and school? And how are your families? Are they receptive to what you are doing in the classroom?
They are. And like, honestly, like going through it as a parent, like I see it a lot more. Like I wanted to practice with my kid and knew all these things, but like I'm super communicative. Communicative. Wow, that's a tough word to say late at night. But I communicate with my families all the time and I express like, hey, this is coming up, this is coming up. And they look forward to it. And I post pictures and I send them stuff because I saw as a parent, like her pre-K teacher and her kindergarten teacher and now her first grade teacher, they post pictures and for pre-K 4, they would post them on Fridays. And I like could not wait to see like a little tiny tidbit of what she was doing in the classroom. And it was amazing. And then being able to study those things and like learn, like I was learning YouTube and I was making like history stuff. She was like, can you make me some videos as well? So I started doing sight words for her and started this whole ICBC early learning stuff. And it was really great. And it made me a better teacher and a better mom. And then I started thinking like, oh, I should continue to send these out to my parents too. And so I started sending them pictures of all the things that we're doing, but they still remember it. And most of my guest speakers are actually former parents. Like I just had one text me this morning and he was like, hey, signed up for next Friday. He's like, what can I talk about? Can I talk about financial literacy with your politics and government class? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so it's great. And, we build those awesome relationships and, because they know how involved I am and they're willing to come back and support later on. And they love how much they see in the growth. And I even had a parent email me the other night because I made a YouTube video to go with the Middle Ages one, and Everly was determined that she needed to help. And I was like, okay, let's do this together. So she actually reads in the YouTube video, she reads the words and then I read the definition. And I posted it because my kids are about to go do it for my sophomores. And I posted an ed puzzle and they have like checking questions. And at the end, I was like, hey, are you doing this via Canva? Because they have the Canva education program. I said, are you going to do this in Canva and print it out? Or are you doing it by hand? Like, and then I had another question, like, how excited are you? And they're all writing in there, like, I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun. I heard about your kids going down last year. And then I even had a parent go out of their way and they were like, I watched this video with my kid because he had missed class and she wanted to make sure he was like getting caught up. And she's like, this is so cool. We ended up going back and watching it again. And she's like, this is going to be so much fun. And it's great because it gets them involved. And like, yeah, they're high school kids, but they still love to make these things and they're going to be showing you how they're learning in different ways. And it gets them interested and involved. And, maybe like if you have your kids, instead of you making the Octonaut script for them, why don't they make you a reader
Hmm.
suitor script? And then you guys act it out. Like, how cool would that be? Like you
Yeah.
can read the books in class. You can do so many things. Like, and I have these fake fridges in my room that are really ancient and old and I really need to redo them. But they're just a piece of paper that I drew a fridge on by like unplugging my smart board like years ago and it says fridge worthy work. And like then I laminated that white paper that's like bulletin board paper when they're up on my wall and I hang up their work to show them that I'm proud of them. And like most of that work is like mental maps that they've drawn out or, visual vocab that they've done or comic strips that we've done, or they really did great on like, they finally got like the unreeling strategy that we were working on. And I hang them up on the wall because it's fridge worthy.
I was gonna
And
say,
like,
there's nothing better than getting your workplace on the fridge.
I know, right? And I joked with my kid the other day that was struggling with an essay. And I was like, dude, I was like, you come back in, we're going to fix this. And I was like, I'm going to email your mom that she better hang this up on the fridge because it's going to be that epic. And he was like, are you sure? He's like, I'm not that great at essays. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And so like, it's really great. And it actually comes from like, I was like this one kid that was struggling years ago when I taught at Harns Marsh. I was like, oh, this is so good. Like you actually scored really good on the test. Like you brought your grade up. I was like, you're going to bring this home. I was like, you can take yours home. It's fine. I was like, cause I held him after class to show him it. I was like, look how good you did when you studied this time. I was like, you can take it home and have your mom hanging on the fridge. And he was like, He's like, my mom ain't gonna hang that on the fridge, miss. What are you talking about? And he was like so baffled. He was like, what world do you come from, lady? And I was like, what? And so that inspired me, and I like made fake fridges in my classroom because if your mama ain't gonna do it, I'm gonna do it because
I
it's
want to steal
amazing.
that. I totally want to steal that idea and just have something, a bulletin board in my room just says, fridge worthy work because that's so funny because I know, especially when the kids are younger, right, it's like an honor if you get your work on the fridge for a job
Oh
well
yeah.
done. And even if you're middle school, high school, it seems like it sticks with you. And it's just something about that kind of just that sense of pride in having your work displayed. I love it. I'm totally stealing that from you.
It's amazing. And it doesn't even matter like you're straight AP student or you're a kid that's struggling. And, no matter what, that is like one of those prideful things that you just absolutely love, whether it's your teacher doing it or your parent doing it at home. And it's great.
So let's talk about pride. Let's talk about yourself a little bit now and all these amazing things. Like you said, you have some in your career with your students, personal recognition, a Golden Apple finalist, teacher of distinction. But what I'd like to talk about is Dr. James A. Adams Lee County Teacher of the Year Award. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and well, what exactly is that an award for?
Um, an award that I didn't know that I was going to get, which was the most amazing part of it. My principal at the time was terrible at lying. Like you couldn't lie to save his life and somehow pulled it off. And I even tried, like, I thought I was just going to this luncheon. I was like, oh, this is going to be so boring. And I kept trying to pawn it off on Colvin, who was my department head. I was like, dude, why don't they just take you? Like, why do I got to go to all these things? I was like, I don't want to go to this. I was like, go for me, go for me. And he was like, no, 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 you need to go. He's like, I'm not going to this. This is all the people that you have in your classroom all the time. Like, you go. And I was like, okay, okay. And so my principal was like, oh, like, let's go, like dress nice, like it's fine. It's just this really great, like law luncheon, and we got invited. And he's like, I think it's because like you just, I don't know, you have these people in all the time, Lewis. I don't know, like, but we're invited. And I was like, oh, okay. So we drove over together, and then we walk in, and I'm just like chilling, just walking in, like casually, like in this cute romper that I had bought, and I was like, oh, do. And then I'm like in there. And then all of a sudden, Jackie Holloman, who you've had before,
Yeah,
walks in.
Jackie's amazing. I love Jackie.
She's amazing. And so she walks in, and then all of a sudden, like a couple other people walk in. They're like, hi, you excited? Like, it's great to see you at this luncheon. And like, they're starting to be terrible at lying. And then I thought, oh my God, it's the award she won last year. It was a surprise thing. I remember her telling me this, and I start panicking, and I'm trying to put my name tag on, and I'm freaking out. And I was like, where's my phone? Because I'm like, oh my God, I got to text my husband. And sure enough, I left it in my principal's car, or I was like, maybe I left it
Oh
at school.
no.
So we go out to the parking lot. So I was like, dude, I need to calm down. And I get out there. I was like, you lied to me. And he was like, what? Lewis, I didn't do that. And then I was like, no, you did. No, he's like, wait, did you just lie to me? Where's your phone? I was like, I don't know. It fell out of the pocket of this romper, but I wish I wore something better. Am I getting an award right now? I was like, I'm not prepared for this. And he was like, I did good, didn't I? And I was like, yeah, you shouldn't have. Like I want to be prepared. And so like
No.
it was a really great honor, and it was great because it really truly was like all the people that come in and help my classroom and everything. And it was for law related education. And it was the work that I do with bringing those guest speakers in and getting kids involved in that civic education. And a lot of those kids go do that stuff later on. I have kids come up all the time telling me about what they're doing and what they're doing. And I have parents text me all the time of like, hey, this is what my kid's going for. And they'll still, because I have their phone numbers from going on, taking their kids on an overnight trip. And they'll still like send me a picture like, this is all a credit to you. Like, I appreciate it. Even if they don't go in government, they're like, my kid was the quiet kid in the background that no one knew. And now everyone knows. And like, it's such a great thing. And they're like, there's a million statistics on the Youth and Government website. If you like your listeners look it up at like the YMCA, it's a great program. And like it shows you how much more civically involved that they're more likely to become as an adult. And to me, that's really important.
It is. It's our civic duty, our responsibility it's so important that we engage our students and teach them the importance of, history, our history, our government, especially I feel just this day and age, because things are so easy just to look up online, but not actually put the work into it. I feel this is just my own little kind of soapbox that getting the students engaged and excited to learn about something that perhaps like, oh, okay, oh, history, oh, government, okay. And you got to get, what I'm saying. I feel, especially sometimes with
Yes.
older kids, but yes, get excited. Yes, rock the boat. Yes, get involved. I learn these things, especially if you move. And maybe it's a little different from elementary, obviously, what I'm more familiar with, the older kids, but get those kids excited and get them want to go out and be the change and make the change and understand the importance of our government and like you said, history, U.S. history, world history, all those things that you're doing. And that award, by the way, for those that are listening, was very well deserved by Kaisha, and
Thank
you
you.
are an absolute rock star. And I was so happy when I had seen on social media that you were a recipient of that award as well.
Ah, thank you so much. And it's really truly a testament to my kids. And I always feel so awkward. Like even when we went through the Golden Apple process, I was like, I don't like to talk about me. Can we just talk about my kids? But it's really to them and the community members that really built it. And like, it's so amazing. Like my kids still talk about, they remember when Kevin Anderson came in, who's the mayor of Fort Myers, and he's come in as a city councilman and whatever else. But he comes in and he hands his card out to my kids. And he's like, yeah, on there is like my office number and my email. And he goes, but also my cell phone number. And the kids are like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's like, you got a pothole in front of your house. I'm a normal person. Like, I want to know about that. Like, he's like, you just shoot me a text. And if I can't solve it, like, I'll find someone to solve it. Like, you see a problem. Like, I got in here because I'm elected by you to serve you. And like, that brings it so home for them. And I really think that like that type of stuff and having those types of people in and having those conversations, you know, that like I had the head of the FEA fly down one time in a private jet, talk to my kids for an hour and fly back up. And so like the head of like the president of the Florida Educators Association cared so much because my kids were writing an education bill to come and speak to them. And I was like, that's how much power that you have in your voice and you will continue to have for the rest of your life. Like that's what you have. And like these people are normal, everyday people like you and me that are here for us and they want to hear your opinion. You're like living through this. Like you as a student have a different perspective. Like your experience is completely different than mine. Like I never had to go through, well, I went through one lockdown drill and it was hide underneath your desk, like an old school one. It was on 9/11
Um,
and like you hide underneath your desk. It was the old atomic bomb drill. Like that's gonna magically save you, you know.
of course, naturally, but it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Like, but like your experience is different than mine, and your experience in life is going to be different than mine. So like advocate, have your voice heard and go out and do those things. And these people care and they want to
Exactly.
listen. They're just people. Like every celebrity or politician is just truly a person and they're relatable. And that could be you someday, or it could not be you, but you should still advocate for the things that you're passionate about.
It hopefully does. Like it inspires them, and it makes it brings that human aspect. Like like you said, I'm just a regular person, and just I'm here to, as civil servant and public servant to support you and really, like I said, for the kids to find their voices and, for their voices to be amplified as they go through this journey with you. Now, you talked about your students' experiences, and I'm going to wrap up this episode with one final question for you about
Yeah.
your experiences. So, looking back at your own teaching journey, what's one immersive learning moment that you'll never forget?
The kids want to learn. Like kids truly, truly, they want it. They want to be immersed in it. They want to see this and they want to be prideful. And I remember like my one biggest, and I'll make it quick, but like this one time we were going on a gig trip and like I had this population of kids that had like some of them had never even left Lee County. And we were going on this trip and we used to go to Haines City for middle school. And I remember this one kid who was a foster kid and he was like one out of like I don't know, it was over 10 kids in total with him and his siblings. And like, so they were all in different foster cares. And I remember like we showed up, had one pickup at Starbucks and then one pickup at the Y. And so my kids on our zone, we were getting picked up at Starbucks and he wasn't there. And so I'm calling his foster mom, and she's like, no, I took off today. I don't think I can get him there. And he's like calling me. He's like, I swear I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And he's like, I'm going to find a way. So he calls another older sibling and they drive him over because someone else had taken him out to go get clothes for this trip because they have to dress like actual legislators. And he finally makes it last minute after everyone's loaded on the bus. He squeals in the parking lot with someone. I have no idea who, if it's a sibling or whoever. It didn't even matter.
But they
But
got
he
him there.
shows
They
up.
got him there.
Yeah, they got him there. But he showed up in all these brand new clothes with the tags still on them, like that someone had kindly taken him out to go get for in trash bag. Like he had a big jumbo trash bag. And he had this trash bag with all of his stuff and he's like, okay, like I didn't have a bag and there wasn't one big enough and like I couldn't find anyone that I could borrow one from and blah 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 blah. But I showed up and I was like, okay. And so this other teacher that was going on the trip with me, he's now a principal and like he looked at me, he goes, I'm gonna go distract. And I was like, go for it, Coral. Like go distract. And he gets on the bus and he's distract. And I'm out there dumping out my suitcase onto the ground and shoving my stuff into this trash bag and then throwing it under the bus and then restuffing his stuff to make it look like he actually packed it. Well, the kids are inside this charter bus being distracted by who knows what. I have no idea. I don't even know nor care.
Oh no,
And
no,
then
okay, I
shoving
don't
his
want to
stuff back
know.
in.
Probably best you never do.
And and it like he had all of his stuff in a suitcase because I was like I want him to like not feel awkward and this be the best experience possible. I was like, I don't care if I have a trash bag. Who cares? Who's really gonna ask me? And I'm just gonna come up with some sarcastic comment back. But like he wanted to go past his bill so much that he had worked on, that he had spent all this time researching and doing all this work, and he wanted to go have that fun experience. And like he showed up whether his stuff was in a trash bag or not. And that's what teachers should really understand. Like kids are sitting in your classroom wanting to learn, whether it's in a trash bag or not. They don't care how you bedazzle it. Doesn't have to be something big and spectacular every time, but they're there and they want to learn.
It, it's I just it honestly making me a little emotional listening to that story because just the difference that you had made and how important it was for that student to want to be a part of this and see things through because of what you had done with him and his classmates. Just it's powerful and it's moving. That's a beautiful story and just wow, yeah, speechless. Honestly, that takes a lot.
And there's tons of teachers out there with similar stories and all amazing things. And like, honestly, like it's not just what I'm doing, it's what everyone's doing. And we didn't come super awesome educators out of nowhere and, awesome parents out of nowhere. Like we have people that inspire us every day. And there's tons of people out there doing that. And it doesn't have to look like Instagram. Like it's just everyday connections
That's
and
right.
it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And it's really great. And I'm really thankful for being on here today and being able to share my books and my passion and, what I'm doing. But there's a bunch of other people out there that deserve recognition as well. And they're doing great things no matter what every day.
That's right. There's a world full of rock stars, a whole bunch of classrooms of rock star educators, and they don't get the credit they deserve. And hopefully, part of why we do this podcast is to shine a light on those, that are and just sharing these inspiring stories with you. Well, real quick, got to plug. Where can we get your books?
On Amazon. So I have three live right now. And then hopefully by the start of next month, because that's also Heimdall's birthday, the fourth one will be out there. And then they are literally inspired by like the activity that's at the end. And it's me turning my classroom activities into books and you can buy them on Amazon. So there's those three. And I have a YouTube and the Instagram for both my accounts for History Viewer channel and ICBC Early Learning. And it's really great and fun, and I really like it. I'm not a very fancy, the no frills Instagram, for sure.
Oh, all about no frills, you know that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not bedazzling anything. It's really straightforward and just here to help as much as I can and something I'm passionate about. And if I don't help anyone, I had fun doing it. So that's all that really matters in life.
Exactly. And I'll go ahead and I'll be putting out Keisha's Instagram handle, link to Amazon, to a couple of her books. Once again, just you look up Kaisha Louis on Amazon. You can find the books. I'll hook up some links in the episode description as well. So, closing, Keisha,
Yeah.
this has been such an inspiring conversation. Really, thank you so much for sharing your story, your passion, and the ways you're helping students not only learn, but truly experience education. I know our listeners are walking away with a lot of insight and encouragement. It's been an absolute honor having you on the podcast today.
And thank you for having me today. And thank you for being an inspiration. And you should check out Joe's book as well, which is also on Amazon and amazing. But
So thank
yeah,
you for the
thank you
plug.
for doing this and, being a straightforward teacher and just being out there inspiring every day.
Oh, thank you very much. And thank you for the plug. I appreciate that
Yeah.
for that No-Frills writing. Well, this is season 3, episode 10 of the No-Frills Teacher podcast, from history books to children's books, starring and featuring my very special guest,